What's up? How's everyone doing? My name is Matt Leighton. This is Shawn Battle. Today we're talking about why real estate deals fall apart. If you ever bought a house, maybe it went really smoothly, or maybe the train fell off the tracks like immediately. There's lots of reasons why real estate deals fall apart, why they don't go as planned. So in today's very quick video, Shawn, let's go through the top 5 reasons that real estate deals fall apart.
Top 5.
Yeah, let's do
Number
it.
1, I think, is probably the most annoying thing that can happen, and that is cold feet. Cold feet is the worst. I mean, but what can you do about it? You know, buyers get so emotional. They get wrapped up into this whole like competing and trying to win this contract, and they're not thinking logically about, you know, what are the consequences? We're actually going to have to buy this thing. So cold feet happens. There are a few things that maybe you could do, right? You could get their financing together, get their numbers for the actual unit or place that they're buying, so that they know exactly what it is. Because a lot of times it's the number that scares them, right? It's your mortgage is $4,000 a month, and they don't really know that. So that can happen, but I mean, what are your thoughts?
The monthly payment? Yeah. You know, a lot of times it's a very emotional transaction. It's a very emotional purchase. So these buyers, you know, you get wrapped up in the emotions of putting in the offer, accepting the offer, and you're like, great. And then you wake up the next morning with an email from your lender, and you're like, holy moly, my monthly payment is what? Like, how quickly can I get out of this transaction?
Yeah, it happens. It happens a lot. I mean, I had it happen once this year, but you know, you can't fault them. I mean, it's a big transaction. It's the biggest purchase of their life. I go through those emotional decisions just the same way. You know, when I bought my house, I was like, oh, am I going to be able to do this? So I know what people go through, but you can also have it on the seller's side too, which is crazy. And I've never had this happen, but there's been times when all of a sudden the seller says, well, I raised my kids in this house, and I have such an emotional attachment.
Wow.
I don't want to let it go.
Wow.
They got sued.
Yeah.
She stayed in the house.
That's rare, but it does happen.
It happens.
Crazy things happen.
Yeah.
Cool. So what's next on the list?
Oh, financing.
This is a big one.
It's a big one. All right. Mainly, people are going to be pre-approved before they write on a place. They're going to know what the deal is with their finances. But it happens all the time where, you know, you get some people that might not have the best lender, might not have the closing cost, the down payment. They're thinking that their down payment is less than it actually is, or, you know, they change loan programs. They go from 5% down or 10% down or 20% down, or, you know, they get caught up in that whole thing, and then all of a sudden, you know, the financing falls through.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of programs out there where they're loosening the restrictions on lending. So someone that couldn't have gotten a mortgage maybe 5 or 8 years ago is now eligible. So these are people that are putting much less down, so they just need less money to bring to closing. Or it's also people with higher ratios, and what we mean by ratios are higher debt to income ratios. And if something happens, if they buy some large piece of furniture, if they buy something right before closing, or maybe just a hospital expense comes up, you're gonna have less wiggle room, which will cause the financing to be rejected, you know, in the 11th hour. Is it 11th hour, 23rd hour? What's the saying?
Any hour.
Any
I don't
hour.
know. Yeah.
Yeah. At the
last
very end.
minute.
The last minute. Exactly.
That hurts. I mean, because you think about it, that finance contingency that period is so long. You know, we put 21 days in our contract or whatever we put in there, but the contract reads that the contingency keeps going until they remove it. So you could be contingent on financing the whole way up till settlement. If they don't settle on that day, then they're in default. But, you know, it happens all the time. And sometimes you go through some crazy stuff, and then all of a sudden, hey, this lender can't do it, but another lender can. Yeah. So you delay settlement. There's ways to combat that. But if you've got a lower credit score, you're going to expect a higher interest rate. So you're going to expect a higher payment, unfortunately, than somebody that has a lower credit score. So financing, make sure that you're pre-approved with a good local lender. Know what your payment's going to be, and you shouldn't have any problems.
Yeah, just get educated.
Do your research.
Yeah, do your research. Cool.
Number 3, home inspection. I mean, of course we know deals fall out on a home inspection, of course, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, what are the things that we could do, or we could tell sellers that we could do they could do
Yeah.
to reduce that. The last thing you want is a buyer to love your house and then all of a sudden hate your house, right?
Yeah.
And the funny thing is when it comes to home inspections, you're buying an $800,000, $900,000 house and you're fighting over $300.
Yeah.
It drives me crazy. But before we get to that little argument, what are the things that we could do to tell our sellers, hey, do this before the home inspection so that we're ready, right? Number one would be get your HVAC system looked at by an HVAC technician. This is one of the biggest things. And what drives me crazy about home inspections, and we all know different home inspectors. We call them whatever we want to call them. Some are good, some are bad, some are deal killers, some are educational, and it's important to find the right one because we don't want our buyers to freak out, but we want them educated. But the one thing that they're not is licensed HVAC technicians. So if we have a licensed HVAC technician come over beforehand, look at the place, look at the unit, and then have that receipt at the home inspection, it makes them feel a lot better.
A lot of home inspectors' job is to scare you. It's to scare the first-time home buyers. Like, oh my gosh, we have this problem, that problem, and the other problem. And then, when you take a closer look and you look on Google, you can, like any problem with the house, you can like easily look up to see the cost. It may only be a small monetary cost. And then usually what I've found is if someone backs out on a home inspection, it's usually never about the home. It's about the emotions. It's never about the home. It's like, okay, well, this is my outlet for why I'm getting cold feet and why it like wasn't meant to be. Like it's either gonna be a sign. People always look for signs, and if you want to buy the house, you're gonna find signs to buy the house. And if you don't want to buy the house, you're gonna find signs where you're not gonna buy the house.
Exactly.
So with the home inspection, again, it's just education and it's being level-headed. There's gonna be a lot of emotions in play, but do your research and talk to the home inspectors. And then, if you're a seller, see if you can go out and get your HVAC service because that's usually the number one issue that we see come up.
Yeah, and on top of that, the last thing you want is that buyer that is in love with your house to have a bad taste in their mouth after the home inspection because you've kind of let things go or you didn't pay attention to details. And you could have a home or a contractor come over and just do the little things. Have separate eyes come over before you hit the market. Do those little things, the little leaks, that we always find. But have somebody look at it. Maybe not a home inspector because then it's all about disclosure. But I think a contractor coming over and fixing little things, then less of a reason to fall out based on that home inspection. Number 4, this is if you're in an HOA or a condo. In the state of Virginia, you have a 3-day right of rescission based on the HOA and condo disclosures. And a lot of times, this can take a long time to get. And this drives me crazy because, we order these all the time, and you can order them on a rush. But these associations are like, hey, I have 7 days. I'm going to take all 7 days to get you a PDF and to run into the unit or drive by the house and say, oh, you're compliant. Yeah. It drives me nuts. So, what are a couple ways that these can fall out because of HOAs? Yeah, so, honestly, the HOAs, there's going to be a few main things to look at. The biggest thing is obviously going to be the fees. Sometimes when listed in the MLS, the agent will list the fees, but this time of year, the agent's going to list the fees as they should. But if the fees are changing in January in the new year, they could be changing substantially. Hypothetically, there could be like a condo, I don't know, like in Ballston, for example, that could be raising their fees by like $150 per unit, and you wouldn't know that unless you were diving in and looking at the 400-page HOA docs. By the way, it's 400 pages that you need to read in 72 hours. Yep.
So the biggest thing is HOA fees, and then obviously litigation. So in real estate, everyone sues everyone. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And condo associations, they get sued all the time. It's not a big deal unless there's maybe a current litigation going on, and the HOA documents will disclose that. If there is a current litigation, there might be an issue getting financing.
Exactly. The other thing would be your rules and regulations with this. So condos, pet policies. Hey, you're not allowed to have a dog. Well, as a seller or as representing the seller, I'm going to know what those rules and regulations are. So if they have those questions, I'm going to tell them that, hey, cats aren't allowed or dogs aren't allowed or whatever. But a lot of times, you might not find that out until you actually get those. Or rental restrictions.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
It's a big one.
If you have to sell no matter what and you can't sell it, it's a bad market and you can't rent it out, then you're stuck. That might be a reason that people pull out. So we're getting down there. But one other thing. Financing for condos, FHA, VA approval. These are two big things that there's a lot of people out there. Actually, an agent just called me today about a place that we have for sale, doing FHA financing. If the building is not FHA approved, the building has to go through certain steps to get FHA approval and get VA approval. And there's different things that they need to do, and they need to keep up on it. If they don't, then all of those buyers that have FHA or VA financing that are going that route can't purchase in the building. So you can only do conventional. So it's really important for condo associations to keep up with that sort of thing.
Yeah.
All right, we're at number 5.
Last one. Numero 5.
This flew by today.
Yeah.
So number 5, man, this thankfully has never happened to me.
Yeah.
But there's some people in the office that have horror stories about this kind of thing. So it is losing your cash to close.
So what do you mean by that?
So cash to close, you give a deposit and then the lender tells you how much money you need to take to closing to close the deal. So your lender is sending over their money, you've got to send in your money to the title company. There's 2 ways of doing that. Well, I guess I've heard of cash, but don't bring cash. You cannot write a personal check either. It's got to be either wired funds or a cashier's check. But what I guess buyers don't realize is there's ways that you can lose that.
Like not lose in the contract, but physically the money
you lose it.
Is no longer there.
It's no longer there. So number 1, if you're getting a cashier's check, know that it's just like cash, right? I've heard stories where people had their cashier's check, they go out to lunch, all of a sudden the cashier's check is gone.
Yeah.
And they can't close the deal. They're in default of the contract. They're going to get sued, plus they lost all their money.
I don't know why you would ever use a cashier's check. I guess the second reason is the reason why you would use it, but I feel like the second reason is very easy to combat. So guys, big issue going on right now is wire fraud. It is literally running rampant. We're hearing stories of 6 figures disappearing into offshore accounts in Malta. Basically what happens is the title company's email accounts get hacked, and then someone that's purporting to be the title company emails you and say, hey, this is the money needed to closing, send it to this address, and then you just never see it anymore. So how do we combat that?
Yeah, you're going to talk directly with the title company when you are sending any money. So if you're wiring the money, you're going to call them and say, are these your wiring instructions from the bank? They're going to say yes. That's the way you combat that, because people are hacking emails. It's happening all the time. If you see people's signatures now, it says beware of wire fraud. It's a huge way that you can just crush your emotions, crush your financing, crush everything and the deal.
Pick up the phone.
Pick up the phone. Call them. Yeah, people don't use the phone anymore. Call them, get a warm voice at the title company. And make sure that
there's this really cool app that just came out. It's called Phone. It makes phone calls. It's you guys should check it out sometime.
Yeah,
it's cool.
So those are the 5 reasons. So we've got cold feet, financing, home inspection. Do the little things before the home inspection. Make that buyer feel comfortable. HOA, condo disclosures. There's so many ways for that to fall out if they're not informed. And then losing your cash to close.
Yeah. Guys, those are the top 5 things. Our best advice is just to get educated and then set up your standards where you kind of understand what's going to happen every single step of the process. Cool. That's all I got.
Yep.
Thank you very much for watching.
Yeah.
Until next time, we'll see you next Thursday at 1 o'clock.
Sounds good. See you then.